The world was no longer the one we knew. Once symbols of modern life, cities had turned into graveyards of collapsed buildings and rusted cars. The sky was perpetually grey. The sun rarely showed itself, and when it did, it seemed to deliberately pull its light away from these cursed lands. The earth had been reshaped, not by human hands, but by the terrifying perversion of nature. It all started with the Great Catastrophe. At first, people thought it was a temporary situation, but soon they realized something far more terrifying had emerged alongside the usual diseases and hunger: mutated creatures. Initially, it was believed these creatures only appeared at night, but it was painfully discovered that this wasn't the case. During the day, they hid in the shadows of buildings, and at night, they came out to hunt. Cunning, greedy, and never satisfied, they were predators. There was a full moon in the sky, cold and solitary. The moonlight filtering through the trees did more to deepen the dangers hidden in the forest than to illuminate them. Emily crouched down, holding her breath. She had heard something, a sharp hiss, followed by a dry, rustling sound. Her heart pounded in her chest as her eyes struggled to adjust to the darkness. Suddenly, a shadow leaped out from the depths of the forest. Emily quickly pulled back, clutching the knife she had drawn from her belt. As the shadow moved closer into the moonlight, she could see it more clearly. Broken, twisted bones and sticky, rotting flesh were revealed beneath it. The creature bore traces of what was once human, but now only a nightmare remained of that past. Emily took a deep breath and watched as the creature moved towards her. With every step, its claws sank into the ground, and its decaying flesh fell away with each movement. Emily had to be careful. These creatures were never alone. They were never alone. It was impossible to tell when or where the others would emerge. At that moment, a hand touched her shoulder from behind. Emily turned reflexively, raising her knife, but stopped just in time. It was Mark, the group's leader. Mark gestured for Emily to remain silent and crouched beside her. "Let it come closer," he whispered. "We need to take it out without drawing more attention." Emily obeyed Mark's instructions without hesitation. The creature was now dangerously close. Its sharp teeth and dead eyes locked onto Emily. Suddenly, it lunged with incredible speed. Emily thrust her knife forward with all her strength, the blade sinking into the creature's neck. The creature let out a piercing scream, but that scream only served to alert the other monsters. A low hum rose from the depths of the forest. In an instant, they were surrounded by the sound of approaching footsteps. Emily looked at Mark. They needed to run, but it was too late. The creatures had surrounded them on all sides. "Run!" Mark shouted. Emily yanked her knife free and sprinted with all her might. As she dashed along the narrow paths of the forest, she could feel the breath of the creatures right behind her. The escape routes were narrowing, and it felt like any moment she would be caught by the creature's claws. But she refused to give up. She had to fight to survive in this world. She saw a light ahead. Despite the darkness of the forest, it glowed like a beacon of hope. But as she got closer, she realized the light came from a campfire. There were other people around the camp, but it was hard to tell if they were friend or foe. As Emily reached the fire, a sound separated her from the others: a gunshot. Mark was standing in front of the fire, taking out the creatures one by one. As the monsters fell to the ground, Emily noticed the other people around the camp, armed, weary, but still fighting. Yet this battle seemed endless. No matter how many creatures they killed, more kept emerging from the darkness. For a moment, Emily thought there was no escape. She looked at Mark. He fought with determination, but also with a hint of hopelessness. The others were in the same situation. Emily tightened her grip on her knife and stepped towards the creatures. She chose to fight instead of flee. It was the only way to survive. Hours later, the camp was littered with bodies. The corpses of both humans and creatures had become part of the forest. Emily looked down at her blood-covered hands. She knew the battle was over, but whether they had won was uncertain. Mark approached, a weary smile on his face. "We survived another night," he said. "But this isn't over, Emily. We're all fighting to stay alive, but I don't know how much longer we can last." Emily looked at Mark silently. Both knew this was only the beginning. Every night, they had to fight to survive in this terrifying world. But something had changed within Emily. She was no longer just prey on the run. She was part of this fight now, and she would survive, no matter what it took.